Usually when we talk about creating a presentation, there is this shared, almost universal dread of the formatting phase.
Oh, absolutely. The endless alignment phase.
Right. Like you have your core ideas mapped out, your data is bulletproof, you have these brilliant insights ready to share.
And then you spend 3 hours trying to align a single text box.
Yes, a text box that inexplicably jumps across the screen every single time you try to resize a company logo. You drag an image like 1 millimeter to the left, and suddenly your bullet points on slide 40 are completely broken.
Yeah, it's the mindless tweaking. It's the tyranny of the invisible grid, really. You spend so much energy managing the layout that the actual narrative just takes a back seat.
I mean, you start off as a thought leader trying to communicate something vital, and you end up as this deeply frustrated amateur graphic designer.
Exactly.
But what if we completely dismantled that entire process? Today, we're taking a custom tailored deep dive into a profoundly different approach to sharing knowledge. We are unpacking a presentation deck from the year 2026, created by someone going by Luck036.
And exploring this deck, it's less like reading a tutorial and much more like reading a manifesto.
Yeah, a manifesto for a tool called Remark.js. The mission here is to explore how writing your presentations in pure, unformatted text, specifically Markdown, could completely revolutionize how you communicate. It's about freeing you from those clunky, formatting heavy distractions of traditional software.
And the core argument driving this entire philosophy is pretty bold. The source explicitly claims that Markdown is the new PowerPoint.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
It really is. To grasp why a purely text-based tool could threaten massive established software suites, we need to look at what Remark.js fundamentally is and, the specific cognitive drag it's trying to eliminate.
So, right out of the gate, Remark.js is essentially a browser-based, markdown-driven slideshow tool. So there is no PowerPoint application to open. There is no Keynote software to update.
None of that overhead.
You literally just need a .md file, a plain text markdown file, and a .html wrapper. It's free, it's open source under an MIT license, and it works in any web browser with absolutely zero dependency.
With literally just one JavaScript file.
No installation required, which is wild to think about.
Well, that lack of dependencies is critical because it plays directly into the creator's philosophy, which they call content over Chrome.
And Chrome here doesn't mean the Google browser.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Chrome, in this context, refers to the user interface of the software itself. It's the endless menus, the formatting ribbons, the drop-down animations, the font selectors. It's all the visual clutter that typical presentation software surrounds your workspace with.
It makes me think about the cognitive load of multitasking. Like, using traditional presentation software is like trying to pack a suitcase that constantly keeps changing its shape while you are actively putting things into it.
That's a great way to put it.
You put a shirt in, and suddenly the shoe compartment shrinks. So you have to stop thinking about what to pack and start thinking about how to rebuild the suitcase. But using a tool like Remark is like simply writing down your packing list on a notepad and then having the clothes naturally fold themselves perfectly into the suitcase based entirely on your list.
Yeah, and that cognitive division is the entire point. When you use a traditional visual editor, your brain is forced to context switch constantly.
Because you're wearing two hats.
Exactly. You are simultaneously trying to be the writer, formulating the perfect argument, and the art director deciding if a font should be 24 point or 28 point. Those are two totally different mental processes.
And doing them at the same time is exhausting.
It is. So by forcing you to write in plain text Markdown, which uses just a few simple symbols for basic formatting, Remark.js completely removes the art director from the room while you're drafting. You just write. The rendering engine takes care of the visual layout entirely on its own later.
Okay, but separating the writing from the designing introduces some major mechanical changes. Like if we look under the hood at how this actually functions, there are some undeniable real-world trade-offs that might give people pause.
Sure. The mechanics are surprisingly sparse. The pipeline essentially boils down to 3 steps.
Right. You write your content in plain markdown text. Then you wrap it in a minimal HTML file. And by minimal, it is literally just a standard HTML body containing one specific tag, a text area with the ID set to source.
That's it.
You just drop all your raw text right inside that text area. Below that, you add a script tag pointing to that single JavaScript file we mentioned, and a tiny initialization script. You save that file, double-click it, your browser opens, and boom, you're presenting fully formatted slides.
And because you aren't clicking a new slide button in some menu, the structure is managed entirely by text symbols. So, typing 3 dashes on a new line tells the engine to break the content and generate a new slide.
Which feels incredibly fast, but styling those slides is where I think a regular user might hit a wall. Since you aren't dragging and dropping elements, you actually have to type CSS classes directly into your text.
You do.
Like if you want a dark background, you literally type class colon nord dark. If you want a title perfectly centered, you type class colon middle comma center. You can even create 2-column layouts just by typing dot pull left and dot pull right with your content bracketed inside.
Which is very different from grabbing a layout template.
Exactly. Let me put myself in the shoes of some used to modern software. There's absolutely no YSiWG interface here.
No, it's what you see is what you get, yeah.
No drag and drop. In fact, the sources admit there's a steep learning curve for CSS customization if you want to change the default look. Plus, if you want to print your deck to a PDF, you need entirely separate tooling, like Pandoc. So my question is, aren't we just making our lives significantly harder for the sake of feeling minimalist?
That friction is absolutely real.
Yeah.
But it buys you something that technical users, researchers, and developers value more than almost anything else:
Which is?
bulletproof version control.
Because traditional presentation files are essentially unreadable to version control systems.
Exactly. Think about how a .pptx file functions underneath the hood. It's a binary file. It is essentially a zipped package containing XML data, images, and media all smashed together.
Right.
So if you are collaborating with a team of 5 people on a crucial slide deck and someone changes a single metric on slide 12, the version control system doesn't see a changed number. It sees a massive scrambled file change.
So it's impossible to track the history of an idea. You end up emailing files back and forth named deck underscore final underscore version 3 underscore really final.pptx.
We've all been there. But since a .md file is just letters and numbers,
It's just text.
yeah, it diffs beautifully. Diffing just means comparing the differences between 2 files.
Yeah.
Because your entire presentation is plain text, a system like Git can track it perfectly.
Down to the keystroke.
Right. You can see down to the exact letter what was changed, exactly who changed it, and at what precise timestamp. You can merge contributions from 20 different people simultaneously without ever breaking the core file.
Wow.
So yes, you lose the visual convenience of drag and drop, absolutely, but you gain an indestructible, highly collaborative, perfectly traceable document.
That makes a lot of sense. You are trading visual convenience for structural integrity, and once you accept that text-to-slide mechanism, this tool unlocks what I can only describe as superpowers for the technical mind.
Oh, standard software completely falls apart when you try to introduce complex technical information.
Let's look at code highlighting. Like pasting a Python or JavaScript snippet into a standard slide is an absolute nightmare.
It's terrible. The software tries to autocorrect your variables to capital letters.
Yes, it ruins your indentation, the syntax colors disappear, and it ends up looking like a ransom note. But Remark.js integrates a tool called highlight.js. It features auto detection for languages ranging from Python and JavaScript to Rust and C++.
And multiple themes too, like Monokai and GitHub. But it goes beyond just making the code look pretty. As a presenter, you need to guide your audience's attention.
Right.
Because it's code aware, you can use a syntax like @code bracket 1-2 to selectively highlight specific lines of code on the slide. The rest of the code dims out, and the audience's eye is drawn exactly to the function or variable you're explaining at that exact moment.
That is so clean. And it handles math with that same native fluency. For anyone in engineering or physics or academia, writing equations is an ongoing struggle.
Oh, opening a clunky pop-up equation editor, hunting for the sigma symbol, trying to nest fractions, it takes forever.
It's miserable. Remark.js integrates KTeX and MathJax natively. You just wrap your plain text equation in single dollar signs, like $E=mc², and it renders beautifully in line.
And for block equations.
If you use double dollar signs, it creates perfectly centered, standalone displayed equations. You can type out a complex Schrodinger equation using standard LaTeX syntax, never lift your hands from the keyboard, and the browser just renders it flawlessly.
It allows the speed of your typing to match the speed of your thought.
Exactly. But I do have to call out one area where the elegance of this system seems to completely break down.
Uh-oh. The diagram issue.
Yeah, the diagrams. There is a huge focus in the source on generating diagrams, flowcharts, sequence diagrams, class diagrams, using a tool called Mermaid. And the promise here is amazing, right? Generating scalable vector graphics entirely from text.
which conceptually aligns perfectly with everything we've discussed so far.
Conceptually, yes. Mechanically, no. Remark.js cannot parse standard Mermaid code natively. To make this work, the sources show you have to use a massive workaround.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
You literally have to inject raw HTML directly into your pristine Markdown file. You type .mermaid open bracket open HTML pre-tag, then write your graph logic, then close the HTML tag. Then you have to write a custom initialization script called mermaid-init.js to read those specific elements and manually call the render function to produce the image.
It's a lot of steps.
If the whole point of this tool is avoiding formatting and setup, why are we injecting raw HTML and writing custom scripts just to get a flowchart? How does this hack fit into the elegant ecosystem?
Well, it is undeniably a hacky workaround. I won't defend the elegance of it. But looking at the broader implications, this is really about the long-term return on investment.
Okay, walk me through that.
Yes, setting up that custom script requires an initial technical hurdle. But once that HTML raw wrapper is configured, think about the downstream payoff for your workflow.
I suppose you never have to manually draw a box again.
Precisely. You're generating complex, perfectly aligned, scalable process flows entirely from text. Imagine you have a massive flowchart mapped out in a standard visual editor, and your logic changes. A decision node now needs to point to a totally different output node.
Oh, I hate that. In a visual tool, you have to manually delete the connecting line, draw a new arrow, meticulously align the arrowheads so they don't look crooked, group the objects, make sure it still fits on the page.
Exactly. It's a cascading formatting failure.
Yeah.
But in this text-based system, you change one single word in your text file. You change node A to node C. You hit refresh in your browser, and the entire diagram redraws itself instantly, perfectly spaced and aligned.
Okay.
That initial hack buys you an eternity of frictionless updates.
When you frame it as a front-loaded effort for long-term speed, the workaround makes total sense. And that philosophy actually perfectly describes how Remark treats the whole concept of a presentation. It forces you to stop treating a slideshow like a digital poster board and start treating it like a piece of software.
That really is the fundamental paradigm shift here. It's the presentation as a software project.
The workflow during the actual delivery of the presentation feels like a polished app, too. You have incredibly tight presenter tools running right in the browser.
Just using keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah. You press P to toggle your private presenter notes. You press C to instantly clone the slideshow into a new window, which is perfect for throwing one screen up on the projector while keeping your notes screen on your laptop.
It's so seamless.
You can press T to reset your presentation timer. You can even deeply configure the navigation, like disabling scroll wheel navigation or swipe gesture so you don't accidentally jump 3 slides ahead when you brush your trackpad.
It offers total control over the delivery environment. But the publishing workflow is where treating a presentation like software truly shines.
The publishing process is mind-bending if you're used to traditional software. There are 0 build tools required and absolutely no server-side processing.
None.
You just have a folder with an index.html file, your slides.md file, the single JavaScript file, and maybe a CSS file. That's it. It's pure static files.
Which radically changes how and where you can share it.
Right. To understand how powerful this is, I like to think of traditional presentation software like a complex factory. It has moving parts, an engine, and it requires specialized infrastructure to run. Remark.js is more like an origami template.
Oh, I like that.
You just provide the raw material, the flat piece of paper, which is your markdown text. The HTML wrapper acts as the crease lines. And the moment you open it in any browser, the browser acts as the hands, instantly folding that plain paper into a complex, beautiful origami shape.
And you don't need the factory at all.
Exactly. It's like cooking a gourmet meal in a microwave. You just drop the raw text ingredients into the HTML wrapper, double-click to open your browser, and the fully formatted presentation is instantly served. And because it's completely static, you can deploy it directly to GitHub pages. You push the folder to a repository, and instantly anyone in the world can view your fully formatted presentation just by clicking a web link.
And that drastically lowers the barrier to sharing knowledge. Think about the friction of traditional sharing. You send someone a file, and you have to wonder, do they have the right software installed? Are they on an older version where my fonts will break? Is the file 50 megabytes because of embedded videos requiring a third-party file transfer service?
I have lived that specific nightmare right before stepping onto a stage, sweating, trying to get a USB drive to read.
With this, you just share a URL. And crucially, because it's completely self-contained in the browser,
Hmm.
it works flawlessly offline.
That's huge.
If you are presenting at a conference with notoriously terrible Wi-Fi, you don't panic. You just open your local HTML file, and the entire presentation, complete with all its complex math rendering and code highlighting, works perfectly. You are completely independent.
You aren't reliant on a host platform's proprietary software, and you aren't reliant on their cloud servers being operational.
No.
That independence is a huge selling point. But, no tool exists in a vacuum. To really understand the value here, we need to look at how this stacks up against the heavyweight alternatives that operate in this exact same space.
It's important context. The ecosystem of presentation tools is vast, and choosing the right one dictates how you work.
If we look at Google Slides, for instance, it's web based, it's free, it's ubiquitous. But to get the level of math or diagram support we've been talking about, you have to hunt down, install, and manage third party add ons.
Yeah, it's not native.
And more importantly, Google Slides fundamentally does not work offline natively in the same reliable, self contained way.
Because Google Slides prioritizes cloud-based visual collaboration. It sacrifices native technical tools and absolute offline independence to achieve that.
But the real heavyweight matchup here is Remark versus Reveal.js. Reveal.js is the other titan in the HTML and Markdown presentation world. They are trying to solve the exact same problem.
And they take very different approaches.
Reveal gives you cinematic 3D transitions, gives you slide fragments so bullet points can appear one by one. It has a dedicated speaker view right out of the box and a massive ecosystem of plugins. Plus, Reveal.js actually has built-in mermaid diagram support without needing that raw HTML injection hack we discussed.
True, but all of those features come at a significant cost, both in performance and, honestly, in psychology.
Mechanically, Reveal is much heavier. It's around 150 kilobytes or more with all its dependencies, whereas Remark is a tiny 30 kilobyte file.
It's tiny.
And the HTML boilerplate required to set up a Reveal deck is vastly more complex. But I want to dig into that psychological cost you mentioned. If Reveal has the diagram support built in and gives you all those beautiful cinematic transitions, why would someone actively choose a tool with fewer features?
It comes down to the psychology of authoring and the danger of feature creep. Remark relies heavily on strict conventions rather than deep configuration. When you have a tool like Reveal that is incredibly powerful, with that power comes the overwhelming temptation to tinker.
You start playing with 3D cube transitions between slides instead of refining your thesis.
Exactly. You spend 45 minutes adjusting the micro timing of how your bullet point fragments fade onto the screen. You get lost exploring the plugin ecosystem.
Just because you can.
Right. For a specific type of user, a software developer, a research scientist, an educator, those features are actually a liability. They distract from the core mission, which is transferring complex information clearly.
So the simplicity is intentional.
Remark's sheer simplicity acts as a guardrail. Its limitations actively prevent feature creep. It forces you to stay completely focused on writing your content and clarifying your logic, because you literally cannot get distracted by flashy transitions. The constraint breeds clarity.
It's like choosing a minimalist text editor over Microsoft Word. Sometimes less really is more because the tool protects you from your own worst habits.
The constraints are the feature.
As we step back and look at the entire journey this 2026 deck has taken us on, it's clear why the creator viewed this as a manifesto. We started with the universal, grinding frustration of visual presentation software, the hours lost to tweaking layouts and fighting invisible grids.
A pain we all know too well.
And we explored how flipping that model on its head, taking standard, unformatted Markdown text, wrapping it in a tiny HTML script, and instantly generating a beautiful, fully responsive presentation in your browser fundamentally changes the workflow.
We saw how it effortlessly integrates complex mathematical equations, handles multiple programming languages with dynamic code highlighting, and builds scalable, instantly updatable diagrams purely from text.
And we saw how treating your slides like a static software project grants you unparalleled version control, offline reliability, and incredibly easy global publishing through simple web hosting. It completely validates the idea that Markdown can indeed replace the traditional slide deck for technical communicators.
It offers a genuinely different paradigm for anyone willing to trade visual drag-and-drop convenience for structural integrity and authoring speed.
Which leaves us with a lingering thought to consider. We rely so heavily today on WYSIYG editors and visual formatting tools. We've been subtly trained to think that making an idea look good is the same thing as making an idea be good.
That's a dangerous trap.
But does the constant friction of managing layouts, choosing fonts, and moving text boxes actually degrade the quality of our underlying arguments? If you were forced just for one project to focus purely on the text, the flow, and the logic first, with absolutely zero ability to distract yourself with formatting, would you actually become a sharper, more persuasive communicator? It's something to think about the next time you find yourself battling an invisible grid just to make a point.